Analysts are predicting Battlefield 6 will sell a staggering 5 million copies in its first week alone. But our investigation reveals that even with that massive launch, EA is on track to fall short of its real goal by a jaw-dropping 95 million players. Today, we're opening the case file on these numbers to expose what they really mean for the future of the franchise, how EA plans to close that gap, and what this high-stakes numbers game means for every single player booting up the game on day one. The entire community was running on one key piece of information, the beta, and by all accounts, it was a phenomenal success. This wasn't just a good beta, it was a record-shattering event for the franchise. The floodgates opened and players swarmed in. We saw 500,000 concurrent soldiers on Steam on the very first day. DICE later confirmed that over 420 million matches were played by August 21st. The hype was real, the engagement was off the charts, and the chatter online was electric. The consensus was clear, Battlefield was back, and the launch was going to be astronomical. This successful beta created a powerful narrative that EA and DICE were heading for an easy victory. It set the stage for sky-high expectations, which makes the evidence we've just received even more critical to analyze. Now for the new intel. A report from the analyst group Ampere has just been made public, and it lays out the hard numbers behind the hype. Let's break down the three key pieces of evidence. First, the headline number. Ampere predicts that 5 million copies of Battlefield 6 will be sold within the first 7 days of its launch. For any AAA game, that is a monumental figure, and signals a blockbuster release. Second, the pre-order data. The report estimates that 1.7 million pre-orders have already been locked in on Steam alone. This shows a strong, dedicated core audience that was sold on the game months before release, likely from the initial trailers and the massive success of the beta. Third, and this is where the plot thickens, the report puts the total number of beta players at around 22 million people worldwide. When you put that next to the 5 million sales prediction, the math is brutal. The evidence suggests that less than a quarter of the people who tried the game for free are expected to actually purchase it at launch. That's a massive drop-off, and it's the central mystery we need to solve. This is where we go beyond the headlines and connect the dots. A 5 million copy launch week is a success by any metric, but when you place it in the context of EA's grand ambition, the picture changes completely. This isn't just about a successful launch, it's about a long-term war for players' attention. So, why the huge disconnect between 22 million beta players and a 5 million sales prediction? This points directly to the modern gamer's mindset. The days of blind pre-orders are fading. Players have been burned by buggy launches and broken promises before, even from this very franchise. If we look back at Battlefield 4's notoriously rocky start, the wait-and-see approach is now standard operating procedure. Players are waiting for reviews from critics, and more importantly, for the verdict from the community. This is where the competition becomes a crucial factor. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is slated to release just 1 month after Battlefield 6. Many gamers, especially those on a budget, are holding fire. They're waiting to see which game offers the more stable, more engaging, and more content-rich experience before committing their $60 or $70. This isn't just a launch. It's the first move in a chess match against Activision. But the biggest connection here is to EA's own stated goal, achieving 100 million players. That number is astronomical. Let's put it in perspective. The report mentions that the entire Call of Duty franchise had around 20.6 million players in 2025. EA isn't just trying to beat Call of Duty. They're trying to achieve a player base 5 times larger. This 5 million launch week isn't the finish line. It's the first step of a marathon. This tells us that EA is playing the long game. So, what does this high-level strategy mean for you, the player on the ground? In the short term, a 5 million player launch is fantastic news. It means servers will be packed, lobbies will be full, and matchmaking will be lightning fast. The game will feel alive and thriving from the moment you log in. The long-term impact is even more significant. Because EA needs to get from 5 million to 100 million players, they are going to be incredibly aggressive with post-launch support. You can expect a relentless wave of new content, maps, modes, and operators. But more than that, expect aggressive sales, deep discounts far sooner than you'd think, and multiple free-to-play weekends to entice those 17 million beta players, and millions more who are still sitting on the fence. Your experience over the next 2 years will be shaped by EA's desperate need to grow that player count. However, there are hurdles. Battlefield 6 is not launching on Game Pass, a massive source of players for many modern shooters. It's also skipping last-gen consoles like the PS4 and Xbox One. This decision guarantees a higher quality, truly next-gen experience, but it also cuts off a massive portion of the potential player base right at the start, making that 100 million goal even harder to reach. Looking ahead, this launch is a critical moment for the entire Battlefield franchise. If the game sells around 5 million copies as predicted, it validates their current strategy of a premium release supported by a robust live service model. But if it falls significantly short, you can expect a major pivot from EA. They will be forced to look at the models of their competitors, and the looming shadow of a massive free-to-play component similar to Call of Duty Warzone will become a very real possibility for the future of the series. For the wider industry, this case highlights a growing trend. Even with a record-breaking beta, converting that initial hype into launch day sales is a massive challenge. It proves that the success of a modern AAA game is no longer determined in its first week, but over its first 2 years. The launch is just the opening battle in a long, drawn-out war. The evidence is on the table, and the case is clear. EA has a massive 95 million player mountain to climb after launch week. So my question to you, the community, is this. Do you think they can actually reach that 100 million player goal with a premium priced game and a strong live service? Or is a massive free-to-play component the only way Battlefield will ever reach that summit? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you appreciate this kind of deep dive analysis, subscribe for more. We're just getting started.